What's good, y'all? We are back with a new landing of the Immortal Thor on Planet Rell, Thor and Loki's first journey into mystery. Now, before we get into the actual story, I will say this issue is being recontextualized by this issue right here, Thor 272. So I'm gonna start here with the Lay of Grimnir from the Elder Eddas from Simon Sigfusson. Rulers and all the gods' favor shall have, whoever first shall look to the fire. And if you've been reading Immortal Thor, you know that these type pages come before every issue. And each one is different, but this one plays a part in this story. So we start the issue with somebody reading, and there's a text box that says the same exact thing that I just read y'all from the beginning of the issue. And yes, this is Dario Agger talking, and he wants to know what he's looking at. And I'ma just tell y'all now, Enchantress is talking to him, and she tells him it's magic and to keep reading. Then we cut to Loki talking, and they say Uller, whose name gave shape to visionary, seer, and poet. Uller, the maker of magics, who rides a ship made of bones through unknown seas. Uller, who at Bragi's call made the U-fire that burns for many days. And this secret fire has many servants, but it's also called the telling fire, where magic words are spoken, where skalds tell their tales. Now Loki has been talking to Thor, and Loki says that the mortals call Uller the bow god, and Uller is the son of Sif and Thor's stepson, but his true parents are unknown. Now Thor responds to Loki, and he says that mortals do speak with great knowledge of what they do not know. And I know y'all probably wondering who is Uller. I'm gonna show y'all right here. Now Thor is telling Loki that in this case, mortals are close to the truth. And since Thor is the Allfather, he bears the sole duty of kin to all the Aesir, whether they are near or far. And if Uller is ever found, Thor's hammer Mjolnir is at his service. Then Thor says that no mortal who knows Uller's full legend will sleep one untroubled night. And that just made me wonder, what is Uller's full story? Like, what you mean a person won't have like an untroubled night? That's crazy. Now Loki says that Uller is the lord of the yew tree of doom and death. And the wood from that tree is best for the bow, and that's because it grows murder. Now I will say that Uller used his resources, and no wonder he is called the bow god. And I wonder who Uller was packing up, because Loki did say that it grows murder. So Thor and Loki have been sitting within Uller's hall, Yetalir, and the magic within the hall is powerful. And the telling fire that Loki courses their hand through is powerful as well. So Thor and Loki are definitely within Uller's hall because it has great magic there. Then Loki says great magic for a great tale, and it draws in both the teller and the audience. And to live a tale, even the one you think you know, may be to die in it. Now Loki tells Thor that a tale being retold may not go as he remembers, but Thor says memory is always a trickster. Then he brings up his knowledge on the lands of Utgard and their gods, and that knowledge and memory is being recalled from things in the past. And Thor says those memories may not fully be trusted. And now since he knows that his mother Gaia made a deal with the elder gods, like Thor knows, he must confront her. But the only way Thor is going to do that is with the truth. Then Loki asks him, what is truth? Even tales twist and turn, and that is because they're alive. And the truth that a tale may reveal is that Thor may be dead. Now Loki tells him, like, you called on me as a Skald of the Realms, Thor, as the teller of tales. But in this aspect, Loki is also Thor's enemy. And this is the Loki that will kill Thor. Now when Loki said that, it made me think back to episode 5, when Thor had that purple skull above his head. So I'm just sitting here thinking like, dog, what's finna happen? Now Thor tells Loki that he believes what they're saying because Loki is his enemy. And Thor does trust Loki to be the enemy because the storyteller must often be the enemy so the story can have weight. And Thor says that he will not be coddled. He don't want this to be on easy mode. Then Thor tells Loki that he is the Allfather and he must know what he must know. Now Loki conjures up some magic and tells Thor, then there is no more to be said. Then we see the 4 different aspects of Loki throughout time, and they say the magic words, once, upon, a time. And the last word, time, is going into the next panel. Time is against Thor and Loki. And Loki says that there are forces to which even a god must bow. Now this is the third time we have heard this phrase throughout this series. This phrase has heavy meaning. Also, I will say this right now so y'all won't be confused. Loki is retelling this story, but this is us just seeing it. Just had to tell y'all that so y'all won't be confused and think it's a flashback. It kinda is, but it ain't at the same time. So now Loki tells Thor like, yo, if you want to get back home before nightfall, we gotta go back now, cause we at the edge of Asgard's territory. And Thor just brushed that off. He like, Loki, I know where we at, dog. But Loki still tells Thor where they are. And they are at the Vemur River. And this river is the largest river within Norse mythology. And this river was also formed at the beginning of the realms. And Loki tells Thor that Odin told them both to not cross the river. But of course, Thor not caring, he smacks Loki upside the head. And this is a time where Thor wasn't humble yet. Now Loki calls Thor a bully, and they ask what was that hit for? And Thor is like, it's for impersonating my brother. Who are you who calls yourself Loki, but yet lives by rule and law? Then Thor gonna grab Loki by the ear, and he tells Loki to take their true shape. But Loki yells in pain, and Thor gives in. He like, alright, you win. Cause he realizes by Loki's yell that this is the true Loki. Now Thor tells Loki to come on, because they got a bridge to cross. Now they start walking over the bridge, and I noticed something. Thor has Jarnbjorn in his hand. In the original story in issue 272, Thor had Mjolnir, not Jarnbjorn. So I'm sitting here like, this story is changing already. And also the fact that they're crossing this river, that wasn't shown in issue 272 either. So this has to be something new, or just something we were never shown. Now Loki asks Thor, doesn't this seem strange to you? We've crossed this river many times on our adventures, but Thor cuts Loki off. He like, wait, before we continue, I got my own question. And Thor asks Loki, was he really unkind and cruel back in the old days? Then Loki tells him most of the time he was, but there were good times and there were bad times. But it was all before Thor learned humility. Now Thor tells Loki that he regrets doing what he did back in the past because him and Loki are kin. Then Loki gives a look and stays silent and tells Thor that we all have regrets. Now they get back to the tale. And I know y'all peeped it as well. They are basically reliving the story as it's being retold again. Like they're really doing the actions within the story being retold. So we really getting two showcases of one story. Now we see Loki tell Thor, there has never been a bridge at this spot before, not one time. This story is changing in many ways. Like I said before, this bridge in issue 272 was not shown. So the bridge being there in this story now is something new that has been rewritten into the story. But since the bridge wasn't there before, Thor tells Loki it's all the more reason to cross it now. Because yesterday it wasn't here, and it might not be here ever again if they don't cross it now. Now Thor like, look through the mist, and he asks Loki, do you not want to know what lurks beyond what we see? Now we in some black creepy forest with these creepy eyes looking at us, and this creepy gate. And bro, when I was reading this, dog, I'm like, what is this? Like no wonder why Odin didn't want y'all to cross that river. But this time is different because that bridge was never there. But that still doesn't make it good for them to cross. Now Loki is telling Thor, like this forest was not here a second ago. And Thor gonna say some details. Like what you mean by that, bro? And you could tell by the way Loki looks. Loki says that they don't like this at all. But then the gate creaks open. Then we see Thor is excited to go through the gate and he says that he loves it. Then Loki starts to walk off and says, like, yeah, what's not to love? Forest appearing out of nowhere, graveyard gates, and creeks that are terrifying. Then Thor grabs Loki and he like, dog, you really gonna decline this dramatic invitation? Then Loki tells Thor that they would and have, because this will not end well. And Loki says that there is one adventure too many, even for Thor. And Thor just rolls his eyes. And he says that this is no adventure, this is myth. Then he goes on to say that there are times when the spinners of fate's thread weave great tales for them. And this is just one moment of trial, and should they run from it? But Loki like, yeah, run from it now. And if this is my moment of trial, I'm gone. Then Loki says that there is no way Thor can make them, but Thor grabs Loki by the ear and brings them along. Now Loki is detailing the story even more. They went through the gate, through Thor's lead, and Loki says again that Thor was not humble. The path Loki and Thor went through twisted and turned. The trees started growing even larger, and the strands of grass started growing longer as they walked through it. And the grass grew to the point where it seemed like Thor and Loki were ants. And the stars in the sky even started to look different as well. But through danger and whatever was ahead of them, Thor kept marching forward. And Loki asks a rhetorical question. What danger could touch Odin's own son? Then Thor tells him like, yeah, I was young and foolish. And as he recalls all of this, turning back would not have helped him. Then Loki yells from inside the tail that they're lost. And they're lost within a magic forest. And Loki being sarcastic, they say being under Thor's expert leadership, they're going to die of hunger before anything kills them. And Thor like, well, you got a point. I could also eat as well. And Thor says, let's go find some shelter. And they do. This panel alone lets me know where we at, but I ain't gonna say it just yet. But Thor says that this cave will keep a roof over their heads. And they gonna find some food, but Loki like, bruh, I don't wanna be here. Let's keep walking. And Loki says that they lost their appetite. But the next thing you see is them inside the cave. Now Thor says that this cave is very roomy. It's like a vast hall, and he sees 5 tunnels leading from the entrance. And he thinks that if some beast was supposed to live inside one of the tunnels, it would be large enough to feed Loki. And Loki is like, yeah, if we don't feed that beast. Then Loki wonders what type of beast will live here. Then says to Thor, look at the walls. It's not made of earth or rock. It's made of some type of hide or leather. Then Loki tells Thor like, bro, we in a cave made of something's skin. Now a rumble starts to make everything shake, and Thor says the cave is rising into the air, and they both are falling to the ground from the cave. Then Loki makes a spell of levitation to keep them up in the air, protecting them both. And this man Thor is very surprised by what he sees. He like, Loki, look. Then we see an actual giant, and the cave that they were in was really a glove, a giant glove. Now Loki is like, bro, Thor, I know giants. I was born unto giants, but that's a giant. Then the giant tells him to speak up because he can barely hear them. It's like they're literally ants to him. Now Thor asks, who are we to thank for the hospitality? And the giant says that they didn't need a name until now. But the giant says, call me Screamir, copy the copycat. And that makes me think back to episode 1 of Immortal Thor, where the frost giant really had the name of Screamir. That was his real name. But here, in this story, Screamir is just a side name. Within Norse mythology, this is really Utgard Loki. But now Loki like, dog, I'm going home. And Loki was finna leave until Screamir said that he had food in his bag. And Screamir like, bro, we can chill out here and eat, but don't never say I never did nothing for you. Now from the things that just conspired, it made me think all the way back to issue 272. And how everything is panning out now is very similar to issue 272, with little changes. One that's very noticeable, Thor had Mjolnir back in issue 272, but within this story, he has Jarnbjorn. Now Loki like, bro, tell him to hurry up. And Loki says that they so hungry, they gonna eat Thor. And Thor like, bro, shut up. Your meal is gonna begin with my fist. Now Screamir starts to open his bag, and he says it's open, well, nearly so. Then he says a child could undo it. And then he goes to sleep. He said, y'all can eat, I'm about to take a nap. And when I wake up, I'm gonna go home. Y'all can come with me if y'all want to. And he believes that his king will bestow royal treasures upon Loki and Thor. Then we come back to Loki telling the tale. The giant went to sleep, and Loki and Thor started to smell what was in the bag. There were fine meats and cheeses, fish. It was a smorgasbord for 2 hungry young gods, if they could open the bag. Now Thor and Loki are doing whatever they can to open the bag. And here's how it looked in issue 272. They both just tried to yank it open with pure strength. But in this case, Loki uses magic and Thor uses Jarnbjorn. And Loki says that Thor's axe can't even cut the ropes, and their magic can't even untangle it. So Thor is like, chill out with that magic, it's only gonna make the rope tighter. Then he uses his own strength to pull the rope off. And he thinks that'll be enough to tear the rope off, but nah, he is struggling. And my boy Thor is heated. He calls it trickery and mischief. Then he grabs his axe and he is pissed, and he says to Screamer that he will not have it. Then he says, "Upon thine head." But he pauses and says, "Upon thine head." And he asks Loki, "Are you sure?" Then Loki chimes in and says, "This part of the tale never changes." And Thor realizes that he could not undo the knot or tear it apart. And his own reaction to this failure, his own failure, was to blame somebody else. Now Loki says that Thor takes his own axe, Yarmjorn, which is blessed with Thor's own blood, and he climbs up upon Screamer, and we see Thor stand upon Screamer's head. And he basically says that he is no longer the person he used to be. And Thor says he is no longer this, not this, and he strikes Screamer's head, yelling, "Not this." Now during issue 272, he had Mjolnir striking Screamer's head, and that is the only difference between these moments. Now Loki says to Thor, "With all your strength, you try to murder someone who offer hospitality as they sleep." Then as Loki is about to tell Thor what the cherry on top was, Screamer wakes up. And as Screamer wakes up, we see Thor falling to the ground, and Screamer says what an untroubled sleep that was. But he says that he woke up because it felt like something hit his head, like an acorn. But he think a bird came by and pooped on his head, dog. That was funny reading that. Then we see Thor knowing he did it. He looking off like, yeah, it was nothing at all. And Screamer says that he's glad that they are closer to his home than they think, because it is visible through the trees. And this is what this part looked like in issue 272. Then Screamer points his finger in the direction of his home and says, "Behold, Utgard Hall." And the only difference with this and issue 272, Screamer just asks him like, "Yo, do y'all want to come with me to Utgard Hall?" Then we see like the panels being pushed back, and Dario Agger is talking. And he says the story is changing as he reads it. Then Enchantress tells him it's Scald magic, Dario, and that two can play that game. And the prize is the mighty Thor. And Dario Agger is holding issue 272 within his hand. And from the way Enchantress was talking, it seems like Loki was the one that was changing everything. But now they all have something up their sleeve. And that something is coming soon. But hey, we finna take a look at what's finna go down. So this is what's coming soon. The Roxxon Age of comics, beginning in April. All the stuff that's been going on within Immortal Thor has been building up to this. And this new age of comics within the Thor realm is going to be leading up to a mega event titled Absolute Absolution. And this was a description about what's going to be happening. But y'all pause and read this because I ain't want to bore y'all by just sitting here reading it off to y'all. And so there's an actual comic coming out in April about the Roxxon Thor. Roxxon presents Thor #1. And it comes out April 17th, written by Al Ewing and drawn by Greg Land. And this is the cover for it right here. Now shout out to my boy Ryan who let me use his tweet to talk about in my video. And it's crazy to think about Dario Agger owning Marvel, the 616 comics, and making his own Thor. Like Al Ewing is doing stuff that'll just blow your mind. Like this stuff is crazy. And when I was reading this tweet, I was like, bruh, what is going on? Like, bro, what is Dario Agger finna do? Like, what is the plot here, man? Like, what do he got planned? What's up his sleeve? What is Al Ewing over there cooking, bro? I know it's over there sizzling. He got all the seasoning, everything, just in there cooking. But hey, man, that's Immortal Thor, episode 6. Let's talk about this in the comments, man. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next video that lands on Planet Rell. God bless. I'm out.